My name is Lena Hartwell. I'm 28, and I've worked hard for every single thing I own. I rent a small but cozy townhouse in a quiet neighborhood in Oregon, where I juggle a demanding job as a freelance graphic designer. My home has always been my safe place, my sanctuary from the chaos of my family. But 2 weeks ago, that sanctuary was destroyed. It started with a phone call from my neighbor, Mrs. Collins. She said she saw people helping themselves to my living room furniture that morning. I rushed home, confused and panicked, and when I turned onto my street, my heart dropped. There were 3 neighbors standing on my front lawn, casually carrying my coffee table and a box of my dishes into a pickup truck. I slammed my car door and yelled, "What are you doing?" They looked at me like I was crazy. One of them, Mr. Price, said, "Your sister told us you were moving out this weekend. She said anything left on the porch was free to take." My stomach twisted. I ran inside. The house was half empty. My favorite bookshelf?
Gone.
The quilt my grandmother made?
Gone.
Even my TV was missing. And then I saw her, my sister, Maya, standing in the kitchen with a smug little shrug. "Relax," she said. "You were planning to move eventually, right? I just helped you declutter. Besides, you weren't even using half the stuff." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. Something inside me cracked. That's when I knew this was the last straw. Growing up, I always knew Maya was the favorite. Our parents, Carol and Dean Hartwell, never tried to hide it. Maya was the golden child, straight-A student, star of the soccer team, the one they proudly showed off at every family barbecue. I was the quiet one, the artsy kid who spent hours sketching in my room. When Maya got into trouble, like the time she borrowed Mom's car at 16 and dented the fender, Dad laughed it off. "Boys at the body shop will fix it up. No harm done." But when I forgot to unload the dishwasher, I got a lecture about responsibility that lasted the whole evening. Birthdays were the worst. Maya always had big parties, balloons, fancy cakes. For my 13th birthday, Mom forgot to order a cake entirely. We ended up eating leftover pie from the freezer. I told myself it didn't matter, but I cried in the bathroom that night. Even as adults, the pattern never stopped. When I landed my first big freelance contract, Mom said, "Well, that's nice. But when is it going to turn into a real job?" When Maya got promoted at the bank, they sent out a family group text with emojis and champagne photos. I think a part of me always held out hope that one day they'd see me, really see me for who I am. That maybe if I worked hard enough, proved myself enough, I'd earn the same pride they showered on Maya. And that's why what she did hurt so much. It wasn't just about furniture or dishes. Those things were pieces of my life I had built on my own, without their help. And Maya gave them away like they were junk. For the first time in my life, I realized, if I stayed, they'd never respect me. After college, I worked 2 part-time jobs just to make rent on my first apartment. I skipped vacations, packed my own lunches, and took on late-night design gigs so I could slowly buy the things that made my house feel like home. Secondhand furniture I refinished myself, a used couch I reupholstered, thrift store art that I framed and hung with pride. Meanwhile, Maya floated through life. When she didn't feel like paying rent, she just moved back in with our parents. When her car broke down, Dad co-signed a loan for a new one. When she got bored of her job, Mom called a family friend who got her an interview at the bank where she works now. And despite all that, I was the one they called when they needed help. When Mom had surgery last year, I drove 3 hours every weekend to cook meals and clean the house. When Maya forgot to pay the electric bill at our parents' house, I used my savings to keep the lights on. I never asked for thanks, but a small part of me thought maybe this would be the moment they'd finally appreciate me. But they didn't. Maya kept taking and taking. She'd come over uninvited, borrow my blender, my books, even my favorite jacket. When I asked for them back, she'd laugh like I was overreacting. Even the neighbors noticed. Mrs. Collins once pulled me aside and said, "Honey, you're too nice to that sister of yours. She treats your house like a garage sale." I laughed it off at the time, but deep down I knew she was right. I tried setting boundaries. I told Maya she couldn't just walk in whenever she wanted. I even changed the Wi-Fi password because she kept using my internet for hours while I was working. That's when things started to feel tense. Maya would make little digs at family dinners. "Oh, Lena's so selfish now. She thinks she's too good for us." Mom would sigh and say I was being difficult. I felt like I was walking on eggshells all the time. But I kept trying because I wanted to keep the peace. I didn't know then that the real storm was coming. The day everything fell apart was a Saturday morning. I had gone out for a quick grocery run. Nothing unusual. When I pulled into the driveway and saw strangers carrying my things, it felt like stepping into someone else's nightmare. I rushed inside, heart pounding, and found half my house gutted. The bookshelf I had sanded and painted by hand?
Gone.
The kitchen mixer I saved at months for?
Gone.
Even the box labeled "Important Papers" was missing from the hall closet. And there was Maya, standing in my kitchen, sipping coffee like she owned the place. "What is happening?" I shouted, my voice shaking. Maya rolled her eyes. "Don't freak out. You've been saying you wanted to move closer to the city. I just helped speed up the process." "You gave away my stuff." I screamed. "It's just stuff," she said, shrugging. "Besides, you weren't using half of it. The neighbors needed it more than you did." I could feel my chest tighten. "You had no right." Instead of apologizing, she smirked. "God, Lena. No wonder nobody likes being around you. You're so dramatic." Something inside me went cold. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked into my bedroom, grabbed a duffel bag, and started packing what little was left. Maya followed me down the hall. "Oh, come on. You're really going to make a big scene over some furniture?" I zipped up the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and walked right past her without another word. The sound of my front door slamming behind me was louder than any argument we'd ever had. That was the moment I decided I was done. I didn't go back to that house that night. Instead, I drove straight to a cheap roadside motel and checked in with the few belongings I had stuffed in my duffel bag. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the ugly floral bedspread, feeling completely hollow. For the first few hours, I just cried. It wasn't about the furniture. It was about years of being dismissed, laughed at, and treated like I didn't matter. By sunrise, I made a decision. I was done waiting for them to respect me. The next week was a blur. I called my landlord and told him I'd be vacating the townhouse by the end of the month. I sold what little was left, the old desk, a few kitchen items, and used the money to rent a U-Haul. Packing was surreal. Every box I taped shut felt like closing the door on a chapter of my life. There were moments I almost called Maya just to scream, just to demand she understand what she had done, but I didn't. Instead, I drove 3 hours north to Portland and rented a tiny studio apartment. It wasn't much, a single room with a kitchenette and a mattress on the floor, but it was mine. I picked up extra freelance projects and poured myself into work. The first paycheck I earned in my new place felt like a small victory. Slowly, life started to feel lighter. My new neighbors were friendly, but respectful of my space. One of them, a sweet older man named Frank, helped me hang my thrifted curtains one weekend. "Feels more like home now, doesn't it?" he said with a smile. And it did. I started jogging in the mornings, something I hadn't done in years. I decorated the little apartment with plants and secondhand finds. I even adopted a rescue cat, naming her Juniper because she was scrappy, stubborn, and impossible not to love. One night, sitting on the floor with Juniper curled in my lap, I realized I was breathing easier. There was no constant dread of a sudden text from Maya, no walking on eggshells before a family dinner, no more waiting for the other shoe to drop. For the first time in my life, I felt free. It didn't take long for my family to notice that I had cut them off. The first message came from Maya 2 weeks after I moved. "Maya, you're seriously still mad? You've always been so sensitive." It wasn't that big a deal. I didn't reply. Then came Mom, leaving a voicemail in her familiar scolding tone. "Lena, family doesn't turn its back over furniture. Call your sister and make things right. We're worried about you." Worried about me? They hadn't been worried when I was sitting in an empty house with strangers hauling away my belongings. When I still didn't respond, the guilt tripping escalated. "Mom, your father hasn't been sleeping. You're tearing this family apart. Maya, you're acting childish. Are you really going to throw away decades of family over some plates? Then came the ultimate play. Dad texted saying Mom wasn't feeling well and needed me to visit. My stomach nodded at the message, but something in my gut told me it was just another manipulation. I called my aunt, the one relative I still trusted, and asked if Mom was really sick. She sighed and said, "Honey, she's fine. They just want to get you back in the house, so you and Maya can work it out." That was all I needed to hear. For the first time, I didn't give in. I blocked Maya's number. I silenced Mom's calls. And instead of feeling guilty, I felt strong. One evening, as I watered my plants, I realized that their voices, the criticism, the constant demands, had been playing in my head for years. And now, for the first time, there was silence. A peaceful silence that felt like freedom. A few months later, I was sitting on my small balcony, sipping tea while juniper batted at a hanging plant, when it hit me. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was living. I thought about my old life, about the nights I lay awake wondering what I'd done wrong, why I was never enough for them. And for the first time, I didn't feel that ache in my chest. My apartment wasn't filled with expensive furniture or fancy things, but it was filled with peace. Every single item inside was something I had chosen, something no one could take from me without my permission. Maya sent one last message through a mutual cousin a few weeks ago. "Tell Lena I'm sorry. I didn't think it would hurt her that much." I didn't reply. Maybe one day, we'll have that conversation. But right now, I don't owe her or anyone my forgiveness. What I do owe myself is the commitment to never go back to a place where I am disrespected. I've learned that choosing myself isn't selfish, it's survival. I've learned that family is proven by love, not by blood. And I've learned that walking away from what breaks you isn't weakness, it's courage. If someone watching this feels trapped, constantly belittled, or taken for granted, I want them to know, you are allowed to leave. You are allowed to choose peace, even if it means starting over with nothing. Because nothing is worth more than your self-respect. And now, when I close my front door at night, it doesn't feel like slamming a door on my family, it feels like closing the door on pain. And opening the door to myself.